So today I'm going to focus on just a pain management, and I want to provide, what is the evidence, support our, the treatment and therapy. So what is the thing about pain? So often we're talking about pain, we always thought about it's a physical pain. From tissue damage, for example, flare-up, during the flare-up, we know FOP patients experience a lot of pain. However, we often forget about it, and we also have emotional pain, which is affected by anxiety, depression, and the stress. And we have the two panel experts here, and they're going to talk, to teach us more about what else we can do in addition to target the physical pain. And also, I think their unique, the experience will help us to control the emotional component of pain. And this is just a very simple, well, it's not simple, it's complicated, the pain pathway. You see the injury starting from, this is a 1644 paintings. And it basically accurately delineate the pain pathway. You have the burn pain, and from the peripheral all the way to the spinal cord affect the brain. So today's science did show is that there were a lot of the complex pathways involved here. And this is the functional MRI did show is that in a chronic pain patient, their brain activity is different compared to the people who don't have a pain. However, forget about this because it is indeed complicated. So can we just go something very simple? So let's just give you an example. So how do we develop the pain? It often involves the nerve injury. For example, flare. And you have a flare, you're tripped, and you have a tissue damage. And the nerve fibers will be activated. And then they first send the signal to the dorsal root ganglions. And in the dorsal root ganglion, you have immune cells, macrophages, a little bit of T cells, cellulite cells. They also have a lot of sensory neurons. Those neurons can be activated, and they further send the signal to spinal cord. And it can activate the dorsal horn, a lot of the cells, neurons, and sensory, further go into the brainstem and in the brain. So we know we have pain. And if you define, for example, a lot of the pain condition, for example, if you go to surgery, why we need anesthesia? Because we have this kind of nociceptive pain. When you cut or you have accidentally cut, that's a pain. And we also have inflammatory pain, especially during the FOP flare. That is a pain we call inflammatory pain. And if the pain is not resolving, eventually it will develop into neuropathic pain. And what we say is that we know a lot of the patients in the FOP community, they complain about a chronic pain. And most of in the old days, we always feel it's associated with the flare-ups. So it's likely it's inflammatory pain. So, but at the same time, we find out is pain is very common in this population. And in the one study, they find that 86% of the patients reported a chronic pain. And in the early survey study, and 31% of the FOP patients report sensitivity to touch and the temperature. What does that mean? It suggests to the physicians and the scientists there is some dysfunction in the nervous system. So that's why we wonder is that we know FOP pain can be inflammatory, but them also giving those a sensitivity to the touch, to the temperature, suggesting there is a neuropathic component involved. To test that, and we did the study. Actually, I have met several patients and their parents who are actively involved in our study because we just want to see is that whether they have a base threshold, the patient have the threshold to the touch, to the temperature. So we want to know is that compared to the family members, do they have any difference? So this is what we found out. We found that 14% of those patients reported neuropathic pain. In contrast, in general population, we know the prevalence of neuropathic pain is only 6 to 10%. So clearly, we have the high incidence of the neuropathic pain. But the question is, how do we diagnose neuropathic pain? Because most of those patients, they said, my doctor told me about it. And scientifically, the quantitative sensory test is the golden standard in clinically to test the small fibers. We often say the C fibers, L delta. So how do we do that? So we're using this device. and can deliver. You see there is a thermal, there's a block you can attach to your skin, can deliver the temperature. The temperature can go down, can go up, so the patient has a mouse to click. So once they feel the temperature changes, you can click the mouse and we record the temperature. That's called a detection threshold. Means when you first notice temperature increase to warm or decrease to cool, you have the base temperature changes. You have a degree, usually 30 degrees, most of people around that range. We also can increase the temperature to heat, like a 50 degree, or go down to the 0 degree, like a place ice, the popsicle or holding a snowball. And 50, what is that concept? We're holding a coffee. That the coffee temperature is about 50 degree. It's not going to cause the skin lesions. And so we can have those baseline. So then we can compare to their family members. We're also using this hair to test kind of one-free hair to test the mechanical threshold. So we found out, actually, in this population, and 89% of the patients reported the pain in the past 6 months. In contrast, only 20% of the family members and had some type of pain during the same period of time. And the pain is mainly located in the lower back, lower extremity. I think most of the people here are not going to be surprised. And about 80 to 90% of the patients use the opioids in the past. And in contrast, only 20 to 30% of the patient family members used the opioid in the past. And interesting is that 44%, up to 44% of the patients report abnormal sensation, and none of the family members reported similar symptoms. So that is just to suggest there is some abnormal sensation and potential neuro deficit, dysfunction in the FOP population. So we found that actually when we performed the study, we enrolled 9 FOP patients and 10 family members. So the reason is we want to make sure the genetic background is very similar. So we find out that actually the patient has more sensitive to the heat pain. That means at a lower temperature, for example, the family members may feel the heat pain at like 45 degrees. And the patient might feel that already feel painful when the temperature increased to 40 degrees. They have but this is a Z-score. The higher means the loss of function, means they have a lower temperature threshold. And when we did a mechanical threshold test, we also found compared to the control, and FOP patient has a lower mechanical pain threshold. Means you use a less stiff filament, the patient will tell you, I have a pain. So all those things, the heat and the mechanical pain hypersensitivity suggest there is indeed a sensory dysfunction. So how do we treat the pain? For example, we're talking about the classic pain management. We go to the doctor. We're often talking about several pillars of the treatment. And we're going to have 2 experts here and soon. And Gloria and Alan will talk about complementary integrative medicine. And I think that will be very useful so you can take home and practice. And physical therapy, everyone knows is critical after the flare, and maintain the functionality is the key. I think in the previous family gatherings, always, a lot of the experts from the physical therapy, they will come to give the advices. How about medication? Oh, I'm sorry. So invasive procedures, including surgery. The problem is it may trigger the heterotopic ossification or flare-up. So you have to discuss with your doctors and decide. For example, a lot of times we have to go to the surgery to, for example, the hip fracture, if that's severe enough. And it's always a to do or not to do question. But talk to your doctor to define what is the best way for you. Let's talk about medication. And I think 2 days ago, I talked to a mom who told me their child is on Tylenol around the clock, did really well. So for most of the patients, you can take up to 4 grams Tylenol a day if your liver function is good. If someone has some mild liver damage, you can limit the Tylenol to 2 grams a day. That means adult, but you have to, in children, you have to adjust the doses. And another very common medication, I think most of the FOP patients will use during the flare is the NSAIDs. And we have two kinds of non-selective and COX-2 inhibitors. For example, naproxen, ibuprofen, Advil, that's a non-selective. And the major complaint from the patients is that it makes my stomach ache. COX-2 inhibitor, the only available medication in the US market is Celebrex. It is known to cause less damage to the stomach. So every year, 100 million prescriptions issued in the United States alone. And what is the major side effect? When we're getting older, you have to be cautious to use the NSAIDs because it can cause kidney damage. And also, they can change the platelet function to increase the bleeding tendency. That's why some of you are from the family members. If you go to the surgery, your doctor may ask you, are you on any NSAIDs? If you're NSAIDs now, sometimes they ask you to stop NSAIDs for a couple of days. That's the reason. And the commonly known can cause GI bleeding. And so often if that is the case, we recommend COX-2 inhibitors. Or you can still take the NSAIDs, non-selective ibuprofen with a PPI, means to protect the mucus in the stomach. You probably heard from your doctor. When we're talking about COX-2 inhibitor, they said, be careful about a cardiac toxicity. Why is that? Because in 2004, some of your older patients or their family members or grandparents may heard about it. And Merck pulled out the medication called Vioxx. Even today, I still have a patient come to me. They said Vioxx is the best pain medication I ever tried. So the part reason is that it's very effective, almost zero GI side effect. But the problem is that they later found that those patient population, when they took Vioxx, developed heart attack. So afterwards, the only the COX-2 inhibitor available in the United States is Celebrex. So question is that, is it safe to use Celebrex? What about a cardiac risk? So a couple years ago, Pfizer sponsored like $200 million, just want to compare the safety, compare the Celebrex with the non-NSAIDs. So they find out, actually, the GI side effect on the side is significantly lower in the Celebrex group. What about a cardiac toxicity? If you use 100 milligram twice a day compared to ibuprofen 600 TID or naproxen 375 twice a day, they find the cardiac safety is equivalent. So I often tell my patients, I say, you can tell your primary care physician, and the data, if you use a moderate dose of the Celebrex, it's safe to use. I think a lot of our patients actually are currently using the Celebrex. So given the certain side effects of the systemic side effect NSAIDs, so a lot of people like to use topical because we can limit the systemic absorption. In the States, Voltaren gel is probably the most commonly used. And I also heard some of the parents talking about cataprofen cream. It's not available, but if you're interested, you may find the compound pharmacy. I think Joe's supermom told us, and she was able to find the local compound pharmacy in New Jersey, I believe. If you have any you need information, you can contact them. And the early study found out the cataprofen gel is a 2.5%. It's slightly better than Voltaren gel, but the difference is not that very significant. And they also have the patch form. It's a little bit better and convenient than the cream. And especially in the US market, we have this Voltaren patch, but more expensive. Sometimes the insurance deny that. We have to struggle a little bit. And the side effects, usually the skin irritation. For example, we always remind the patient, if your skin, make sure your skin is intact, because if the skin is broken, and even the topical agent can become systemic. And there is indeed some reports from the lower GI bleeding. Those patients are usually older, so they just like those patch, and they put more than 3 patches around their body. So increase the chance to have more side effects. So just letting you know, follow the doctor's advice and don't use too much. The other topical agents, for example, lidocaine cream or lidocaine patch is very common. And I heard the different responses from the patient. Some people say useless, some people say, help a little. And also the topical capsaicin, the problem is a lot of people don't like it because it causes burning sensation. I think I often recommend to my patients, if you have to use it, use a lidocaine cream first to numb the skin before you apply the capsaicin cream. And a lot of the people from the community like the herbal medications, and I would just use it, based on your experience. I will not give any further combinations. And Salon Pass is another one over the counter. So the mechanism is to dilate the blood vessel, allow you feel the soothing warmth. And the medical-wise, there is no solid evidence. But if you feel that's work for you, you can continue to use it. So what is the evidence of NSAIDs use in FOP? I know a lot of the patients last time I talked to, they are on the years of the COX-2 inhibitors or other medications. And so far, we don't have evidence to support the chronic use NSAIDs can prevent the flare-up. So I was asked last time, I said, I'm doing fine. Do I still need to continue to use NSAIDs? I would say probably not necessarily, because continued usage did not show any long-term benefit. All right. So neuropathic. I want to talk about a neuropathic medication, which is the first-line treatment for neuropathic pain. And at the beginning of my slides, I talk about we do confirm in the chronic pain conditions, and a lot of the FOP patients, they have the neuropathic pain. So how do we treat it? We have several, the neuropathic medication for the gabapentinoids, tricyclics, SNRIs, and duloxetine, and they can be considered. What is the side effect? Gabapentin mainly is side effect is sedation. So we often tell patients to start low and start at night. And once in a while, patient may report some ankle swelling, and the tricyclics and can cause dry mouth, weight gain. And in elderly patient, and we don't recommend because when the people stand up, the pressure may drop. Duloxetine, during the first trial, patient may report some nausea, usually well resolved, and potentially can contribute to chronic liver dysfunction if you use for a long period of time. Okay, I put the opioid in the last, follow. The reason is that in the past, everyone aware here, so in the past several years, the prescription opioid, related to death escalating, in the striking rate. And it's very effective. Don't get me wrong. It is probably the most effective pain medication we have so far. And despite a lot of the public crisis concerns, I think I would say if there is a need and the doctor's guidance, opioids still can be safely used. And it's mainly the problem causing the death is the respiratory, the depression. So we often now, I think that all the doctors, if they prescribe the opioids, the patient will receive naloxone for emergency use. And I just want to give you the study. And so this study is a little bit, atypical. So they recruited a patient with chronic back pain or hip pain, knee pain. And without treating them with other pain medication, they separate the patient into two groups. One group received NSAIDs Tylenol, like a regular non-opioid regimen. Another group, they receive opioids, which is unconventional. We never done that. But I think they're trying to prove the concept. What they found out is there is no difference in functionality and no difference in the pain intensity reduction. So what does it tell us is that there is no need to treat the patient with opioid as a first line. So you can safely start with NSAIDs or the Tylenol to start with. But in the practice, we never done something like that. I think it's extreme examples just to show what is evidence. If you do something like that, there's no additional benefit. Okay, every time I think my patients, we're from San Francisco. A lot of patient approaches, what about marijuana? And with increasing approval of recreational and legal use marijuana, so we have to talk about it. So I am personally not an expert. So we have the expert who will talk about the marijuana use in the shortly. So what I'm going to focus is what is evidence of medical cannabinoid. The mainly FDA-approved cannabinoid is mainly the THC and the CBD. And for example, for the cancer pain, we use those Marinol to improve the appetite or prevent the chemo-related nausea vomiting. So people have done the study. They just want to see that, can we treat neuropathic pain, as I described earlier? It's most of the refractory or challenging pain condition. And there is, if you summarize all those, the studies, include like 1,200 patients. And this analysis find out there's actually not significant benefit compared to the control group. And also, there is no significant side effects. However, I want to point it out. Majority of those participants report feel better and they're able to sleep better. Why is that important? Because a lot of times we know the sleep can compromise the pain. So for example, if the animal, the mice, for example, we often like to tell the patient, if you sleep deprive the mice will develop the sensitivity to touch their hind paw. And also if you increase the temperature, they're going to jump. However, if you restore the mice, the sleep cycle, all the symptoms will go away. So those sensitivity is neuropathic pain feature. We observe the same thing in our patient population. For a lot of the chronic pain patients, if you ask them, how's your sleep? They say it's terrible. So we often take advantage of the side effects like neuropathic medication, like gabapentin, nortriptyline. Ask a patient to take a night, and so make them sleep better. I have one child actually very happy using the night dose, low dose nortriptyline. So you can talk to your doctor. That might be another things better than the sleep aid, benzos. All right. I also ask you to talking about what about this stimulator, the non-invasive stimulator. And some of you may use the TENS unit. Now they have low frequency, high frequency, and I was asked by some of the doctors, they said, is those stimulator use is going to cause any flare-up? I don't think there is a clear evidence. You still can use it. But the efficacy is probably variable. And another thing people used in the past called just a brain stimulation, kind of magnetic stimulation, and was proved for depression. So what I wanted to show you a picture. So this is a device. They have a new device similar like that. And however, there's not enough evidence for the FDA to prove for treating the pain. And some of the side effects, patient, because they have the device put on your head, patient may complain local pain, such as headache or neck pain. So you have to discuss with your doctor. All right. Pain psychology. I think this is another very important and evidence-proved therapy, which can specifically target emotional pain. And the problem we're facing is a lot of the patients from the community, they don't have the competent or knowledgeable clinicians in the neighborhood, or they live far away, they don't have access. So what we have made is we have collaborated with a pain psychologist. We made 5 short educational videos, and we're going to introduce online. I think after the Hope Newport talk about this, so I sent the link for her, see whether there will be any values for FOP community. So it's just less than 10 minutes videos, and talk about very basics about what is a chronic pain, how do we deal with a chronic pain. So she's going to review, see any values. If she feels that is useful, she will put it online so everyone can have access. All right, thank you.
Okay, my name is Lennox Smith. I live in the state of Rhode Island. I do not have the condition that we are talking about today, but I am here standing in front of you with a person also living with pain. And I will explain that in a minute. And for me, having very little choices of what I can turn to, because I'm allergic with my condition called Ehlers-Danlos to not only foods, but also medications, I was really at a loss as to what to do to help keep myself alive and have some quality of life back. As you all know, we have to have a disclosure. Everything my husband and I do for the U.S. Pain Foundation, which we're volunteers for, is all volunteer. And I was a teacher and had to have something to give me purpose and meaning back in my life when I lost my career over my health. Oops, that's 68. That's a lie. I'm actually 69. I was diagnosed in 2004 with Ehlers-Danlos, which is inexcusable because I was 54 years old with something I was literally born with, and it took them 54 years to figure out what it was. And a year later, got a golden gift of a second diagnosis of sarcoidosis. So right now, I'm living with two things that also presently have no cure. 2007, I was suggested by the pain specialist that I consider trying cannabis because I was unable to tolerate anything. I was still teaching, I was going to work, I couldn't think straight, I had to cheat and have a chart of the children's names that I adored, middle school kids, in front of me because I couldn't even remember their names as much as I loved them all because I was just fading with the pain level I was living with. Became a patient, have been very active ever since. I thought if I was scared to use this as an older person, then other people are feeling that way too. I was brought up to stay away from cannabis, that this was not right, and I was going to be a bad person for using this. And my God, I took it the first night, warned my husband, oh, I just took this thinking I'm going to be out of control of my body and be miserable. And the next thing I knew, I woke up and it was morning. It was the first full night of sleep I'd ever had. So it was pretty amazing. So today my husband and I, he's sitting there in the blue shirt over there, we're co-directors for the U.S. Pain Foundation, volunteering as cannabis advocacy for the country. We go out and speak about it. I've published 2 books, one on living with pain, another one about my service dog, Maggie, because I realized people didn't understand what a service dog could do. I used to write for Pain News Network. Today I'm staff writer for 1000 Watts Magazine and also for National Pain Report, where I'm able to talk about cannabis, talk about my condition, and basically just living with chronic pain and hoping to pass things forward. Also on various committees that you don't need to hear about. But as I said, I do live with pain. I've been reactive my entire life. Pediatrician told my mother that I seemed to be allergic to my own body, and in the end, he was just about right. I finally did have DNA testing to show that medications I was putting in my body, it made sense why I stopped taking anything, because I was better off just living with the pain than I was living with the pain and a reaction to everything I was putting in. So I stopped using medication, and I was miserable. As I mentioned, unfortunately, 25th surgery is coming up in 2 weeks. Great timing, Friday the 13th. But with my condition, I'm being held together with cadaver tendons and did 4 years in a wheelchair and have worked really hard to get out, but it's constant work every single day to live this life. In 2007, I went to the pain doctor as my primary care suggested. I was on my way to Wisconsin. They didn't know what to do with me. He sent me to the pain doctor. He sat there and said, I want you to try cannabis. This particular doctor had no intent to get involved with the program, but when he looked at my medical records, he really understood there was nothing for me. He said, if this works for you, I will sign you on. You will be the first patient that I will consider signing into the Rhode Island program. So I listened to him. I was scared to death. I'm a wuss. I don't like feeling out of control of my body. And I tried it once in college, and that's exactly what happened. I laid in bed feeling like I was going in and out of sodium pentothal. To me, that's not a fun time. So the thought of turning something that I had had that reaction to scared the heck out of me. I thought, what kind of life is this going to be? But I take it at night. I sleep. It activates while I'm sleeping. I wake up, and I'm shocked to tell you I don't take anything all day long, because what I take at night in that oil form stays in my system, and the next morning continues to keep my body calm. So I couldn't keep my mouth shut about this. I thought, if this can help you and help anybody else in this world, we need to open up and be honest about it. So let's go the difference between using CBD or the actual cannabis plant. Now, CBD can come from hemp, or CBD can come from the cannabis plant. So you need to understand just a little bit here. From the hemp plant, CBD means that there's 0.3% THC in that plant. And in most states, that is legal to be able to purchase. CBD from the cannabis plant means that you also have THC, but it's going to be above the 3%. Just be careful, those of you that think just using CBD from the hemp is going to be fine and you have a job where you get a urine test. Actually, because there's a very minute amount of THC in there, in enough time it can accumulate in your system and you could possibly come up with a positive urine test for THC by just using the CBD from the hemp. So it's very important when you purchase CBD that you get a product that lists what's in it. So many times you can go to a store, pay an arm and a leg, and you look at the container or whatever, and it doesn't even tell you what's in there. So you want to go to a product that is taking the time to go beyond what's being required, because right now there's no rules and regulations. So look for the ones that are putting them in for themselves now and trying to do it correct. Children with seizures. For instance, the state of Georgia has allowed the use of CBD from the hemp plant for children with seizures. The only problem is Dr. Jordan Tischler said that the studies are showing that after about 6 months, those kids that initially start to reduce the seizures, in time they need the THC added to that to actually continue to get rid of seizures. So just something to keep in the back of mind. Unfortunately, except for the country of Germany, we're all fighting the fact that this is not being covered by insurance. There's a number of states in the country that have attempted. It's not passed yet, but that certainly is the goal, that everybody has equal access in the future and that it is considered a medication that we will get coverage for. But for me, this is all I have to keep myself alive, and the fact that I have to pay out of pocket is not acceptable. Presently, to find safe sources of CBD, as I said, there's no regulations. It can be expensive, so make sure you're getting ingredients listed in there, and these are just some of the companies that you can count on. So how do I check to be sure it's a safe CD product? According to Dr. Sanjay Gupta, who recently had an excellent documentary called Weed 5 CBD Craze, you really should go sit down and listen to it. Due to no present regulations, it's up to each state to decide. Utah has established a law as of 2018. There must be very specific things that have to be listed on that product. Illinois just passed it also. But for the rest of us, the best we can do is look for a certificate of analysis or a code for their website that you can then turn to make sure that you're getting the proper information that's in that container that you're going to spend an arm and a leg for and can be wonderful to use. The cannabis plant with the THC, please don't be afraid to use it. According to Dr. Sanjay Gupta, THC has demonized. It's been demonized by the CBD scare. So many people dealing with this craze that they come to me, oh, I would never touch THC. I wouldn't be alive if I didn't have the higher amount of THC in my plant. And hopefully I'm not coming across high and stone to you, because that's not how I feel at all. This is something that addresses my pain, and the reason I didn't have the reaction I thought I was going to have back in college when I started to use this as a person in pain is because it reacts differently in a body of pain. It addresses the pain. So if you're out there and you have no pain and you take the same oil I take, you're going to get high and I'm going to get pain relief. Can you take too much and get high? Absolutely. And it's no different with any medication. You must make sure that you take the dose that would be appropriate for your body. And it's very important, if you decide to try this, I would go below the dose people even suggest and very slowly introduce it to your body. I know you might feel like I feel horrible pain, I really need help right away. And I had one person who did that. I'm a caregiver, and my husband and I are caregivers for patients in the state, and one person did not listen, went home and took way too much, called me up and complained they had stomachache and diarrhea, and they felt horrible. I thought, well, what the heck would you do that to yourself for? Any different than taking an entire bottle of antibiotics at once. You take things as they're supposed to be taken. So, for me, the choice was cannabis. Benefits, and I'll be doing 2 breakout sessions this afternoon. One will be going into each individual state that you represent, of seeing where your rules and regulations are, and also how to advocate for this product in your state if things are not as they should be. And the other one will be about the various ways of taking it. I personally take it in this oil form. I also have sarcoidosis in my chest, so smoking anything would be fatal, so it was never even an option. And I absolutely love this because mine's in an oil form. It's easy to travel. I don't have to worry about doing any question about damaging my lungs. It's easy to store. It's activating while I'm sleeping. And many achieve their true dose can actually mean less medication, other medications that you take. I used to be on gabapentin. I am no longer on it. There's things I've been able to reduce because getting a full night of sleep and waking up rested, no matter what is wrong with you, is the beginning of getting some quality of your life back. So, what name should you ask for? As you know out there, there's so many different strains and names, it's just absolutely overwhelming. And the bottom line is, if we all were in this room with the exact same condition, and I gave you what worked for me and you tried it, some of you would have help and some of you would not. We do not all react to the exact same strain, even though we might have the same situation that we're dealing with. So you have to be patient to find the correct match for your body. Dispensaries or whatever your compassion centers, whatever they're called in your state, are very helpful with helping you. But be careful that there are two very different types of plants that you need to understand when you walk in and ask for help. One is called the Indica strain. If you look at that plant, my husband and I are actually home growers in the state of Rhode Island. We're fortunate we can actually grow my medicine. I know it's safe. I know it's there growing and ready for me. I don't have to go to a dispensary and find out the one strain that's working for me isn't existing. So this is an example of one of our Indica plants. If you'll notice, it's very compact, and you'll see the difference in the next one. So Indica is higher in CBD, lower in THC counts. Its quality, it's increased mental and muscle relaxation, decreases nausea, acute pain, increases your appetite. But, you know, to be honest with you, I don't walk around starving use of cannabis. I've been using it since 2007, and I don't get these horrible cravings that people talk about. It just, for me, has not worked. The important thing about Indica, you take it to get not only pain relief, but to relax and go to sleep. So you do not want to grab an Indica strain, go home and take it during the day, or you're going to find yourself in bed, zonked out, and that may not be what you wanted to do during the day. So the opposite, and notice the plant is more wiry and spread out. So if you're not really sure what you're looking at, compact is nighttime, wiry is daytime. Kind of a real general way to go with it. Lower CBD, higher THC counts, qualities, it helps with anti-anxiety, anti-depression, treats chronic pain, increases your focus, and serotonin is preferred for daytime. I'm an idiot. I went for a very long time sitting at my computer trying to write, having this really raunchy day, and thinking, what is wrong with me? Here I am helping other people to get the courage to try it, but I wasn't trying it during the day at all when I was having my breakout pain days. Finally took a teaspoon of some tincture I made. Next thing I know, I'm sitting away at the computer. I was clear-headed. I thought, what the heck was I waiting for? So, you know, if you're concerned about trying it, I understand it because I've done the same thing to myself over and over. The main thing is to remember, do not take a daytime sativa at night or you will stay awake. And you don't want to take the Indica nighttime strain during the day or you'll be going to sleep. So it's very important you understand when you walk into these centers or walk into a grower what it is you're looking to do to accomplish. So if you go to a center, you want to speak to a specialist. They can be wonderful, they're very helpful. I know it's very different than going to a regular pharmacy. That's not how it's set up right now. Some states have, you know, allow some things, some others, and it's a very confusing time in our country, and we're looking forward to the time that we all have the same access and the same information that's just not equally there yet. But find a reputable dispensary and talk to them, and remember what you've now learned about the difference between Indica and sativa. Can you reduce other medications? Many people we've worked with have. You don't want to jump to doing it all at once. You want to try undoing one thing at a time. Give it some days, see if you feel any changes, see if you're doing okay. Don't ever try to reduce 3 medications at once and then you have a reaction and something feels off. You don't really know what it is that wasn't working out. So make sure you take it one thing at a time. And don't compare it to others. We all require different amounts and different strains to work with. There was one time, because I, with my condition, have to keep facing surgeries, there was one time we flew out to Texas to meet a gentleman and he put me on this vector treatment to calm down the body. And when I arrived to him, I was on 4 teaspoons at night of oil to be able to sleep. I had one treatment with his machine, and the next thing I know, I woke up in the middle of the night after that treatment, and I was like trying to find my way to the bathroom. And from that point on, I've been down to 1 teaspoon. It calmed the body, and I don't even use that treatment machine anymore, but it did calm me down. So don't get worried. There's no set amount that you should or should not be having. You have to go by what it is your body needs to help calm it down. And no matter what we have wrong, remember about inflammation. It's suggested, with my condition in particular, I have MRT, food sensitivity testing constantly, because if I put any food in my body that I'm not able to metabolize, it's causing added inflammation in my body. And for my condition, my joints sublux or dislocate. So if we add inflammation, I'm a disaster. So that's really important. And same thing, if you're finding you're having problems with medications and you don't seem to be doing well with them, consider a DNA drug sensitivity testing. Mine came back a disaster. Everything I had gone through and reacted to was actually correct. I mean, aspirin, Tylenol, all the opiates, I really couldn't metabolize them, which is why, in time, just stayed away from everything. Remember that no one has been known to die from the use of cannabis. We've had a lot of scare tactics in this country for something that not that long ago you could go into a pharmacy way back when and actually purchase it. But yet we went through this time period, we took it away and made it sound like it's a mean, horrible, nasty thing. There are few side effects. There are few drug interactions. There's actually more possibility of a drug interaction using CBD from the hemp, particularly for blood thinners. Be very careful that your doctor knows you're using CBD and make sure you discuss it and look it up. There's a whole list of things that could potentially react to using CBD from hemp, so just be very careful. I'm not saying anything bad about CBD. It's a wonderful product, but make sure you're careful with what else you might be taking in your body. And remember to go slowly and only use as you need it, and then you will not experience the high that people talk about. If you're interested in considering this, you can Google your state, find out where your state stands. We will do that this afternoon. I have handouts for everybody from each state that's here represented. That just happens to be my lovely medical card that I have in Rhode Island. You find out if you qualify. You have to find out what the list of conditions are. There's some states, I know I wrote an op-ed for Connecticut. They decided they didn't want to include chronic pain. I wrote them a note and said, well, geez, if I lived in your state, I'd have 2 choices. I'd go on the black market, or I'd follow your law and I'd be gone. I'd be dead, because they didn't include chronic pain. So my condition's rare like you, so who's going to go list my condition as a qualifying condition? So qualified under chronic pain, we fit in. So we need to see every state in this country have that right. Or even better than that, have every state where instead of qualifying conditions and trying to list them all, why don't we go back to the doctor-patient relationship where the doctor makes that decision with you whether or not you should give this a try and not have to be hung up on whether I qualify them by those lists. If you decide you want to try it, you find the form, you see that you can qualify under the qualifying conditions. Each state is going to have a different application process. In our state of Rhode Island, we don't have a doctor sign a script, and I don't think any state in this country signs a script. You're signing just confirming the person has that qualifying condition. Because as we all know, this is still stuck in Schedule I in the federal government. We are working very hard to try to get this away and get it so this is not being listed as heroin in that same category. It's ridiculous. Cannabis in children brain development is the adolescent brain vulnerable to lasting damage. It's believed that up to the age of 25, there is a chance that cannabis socially will affect the brain development. And many parents still consider medical cannabis for treating a chronically ill child. There's things we have to do when we suddenly are given a condition that we have to cope with for the rest of our life that maybe wouldn't be something we would have chosen to do if we were healthy. But I mean, I wish I didn't have to take anything, but that's the life I'm living now. So I am choosing what works for me and what I feel is safest out there. So sometimes we have to look the other way. Yes, there's that study out there, but we're dealing with children with pain. What is going to be safer and what's going to have less side effects, because cannabis really doesn't have them. Is cannabis more or less damaging on some of the other medications that are being prescribed for your child? You have to weigh out those positives and those negatives. Where does the medical field stand? Some doctors are in support of medical cannabis. There are a few pediatric pain therapies. Existing pain treatments do come with risks. There are 0 fatalities with cannabis. And if you ever do take too much, don't panic. It's a scary feeling. You feel a little weird, but it does wear away. Don't rush to the hospital. You don't need to do that. Just lay down, relax. Don't ever take that dose again. So why consider cannabis for children? It could be considered a very safe option. It reduces overdose and addiction. It's used for a variety of conditions. It has therapeutic potential. Be mindful of the dosing and the strains as you use this. And that's just various things you can consider and possibly go with. Not all children are going to be the same. What works for one is not going to necessarily work for the other. As with adults, it will be different. The effectiveness and the duration will differ, so don't get concerned if a friend of yours is using it and they only use a teaspoon or whatever, and your child needs 4, or you as an adult. Don't get worried about that. Each body is going to react differently. Moving on, how parents administer. You can do cannabis through patches, through juicing the fan leaves, which would give you pure CBD from the actual cannabis plant. Many people take those big fan leaves and throw them away. They're actually loaded with wonderful product. Concentration form, there are sprays, there's nasal spray, there's edibles. With my condition, edibles are a problem because we can't metabolize a lot of food. So you go and have an edible, you've eaten a cookie, and now you get gluten in there and dairy and soy, and those are all the things we can't metabolize. So for us, edibles are really a problem. And be careful, if you're going to go with an edible, you're not going to feel anything for a while because you're ingesting it in. It can take up to an hour or maybe even more depending on the body. So if you eat an edible, you have a nice little bite of that cookie and say, well, I don't feel a thing. I still have all this pain. So you eat the whole cookie. And an hour later, you're like, oh my gosh. So if you do edibles, please go slowly and remember, it's not fast acting that way when you ingest in. It takes time. But they come in gummy bears, brownies, lollipops, all sorts of different ways. People bake it. CBD oil also in capsules. It can be mixed with food. Dr. Lucido's advice is give oil tincture under the tongue for a child, a younger child. Facts to consider, patches are 5 for $1.25. Recently, they can last up to 96 hours. Tincture is a concentrate from the cannabis plant. I personally make it for our patients at home. You take a teaspoon, put it in your cheek or under your tongue, hold it for about 20 seconds, and swallow it down. I make it with a daytime strain, so it's an outbreak pain relief that we can use. Sprays are easy for absorption, high quality. There's a new THC nasal spray on the market that for severe cases of seizures. Edibles, as I mentioned, oils, capsules, and so on. There's lots of different choices, and we'll go into that further this afternoon. For strains, remember the appropriate strain will vary from child to child. Child-friendly strains, very friendly, are Charlotte's Web, Harlequin, and AC/DC. Very, very high in CBD, much lower count in THC. Why are they child-friendly? They're known to be effective treatment for illnesses, a variety of illnesses. They're little to no psychoactive effects and high in CBD, low in THC. But when I say little psychoactive effects, that is because you're not overdosing, okay? If you take too much of it, you will get that. So how to find your optimal dose. We're actually going to go more into that this afternoon, so I don't want to take too much time because I know we have another speaker. And this is cannabis-based products are made equal. Just remember the difference of hemp-based CBD versus cannabis-based. Don't be upset if you've tried CBD. Initially, it seems really great, and next thing you know, it's not enough. Don't get upset. It just means you need a higher count of THC, which means you need to get legal in your state, because in order to use the real cannabis plant, you do need to become a legal patient and get your medical card. Can it be administered in schools? The laws, unfortunately, vary from state to state right now. Some schools allow staff to administer. California is pending the governor's signature. Colorado, Florida, school district gets to decide. Maine is a yes. Washington and state is a yes. Parents dispense on school grounds in Delaware, Illinois, New Jersey, and this information keeps constantly changing. If you're interested in talking with a parent who uses cannabis for their child, or I'm happy to talk to the adults, but I have a couple of people that would be more than happy to you that have taken this on, dosing their children, and you would like to speak to somebody that's had that experience and still has that experience, I would be happy to connect you. Just send me your information, your child's name, their medical condition, what state you live in, because each state has different rules and regulations, what you'd like to discuss with a parent, and the best way to reach you via email or phone. And also, just to throw in, we have a wonderful pediatric pain warrior program with the U.S. Pain Foundation, and they actually offer a camp. One's in session right now, this time in Chicago. If you're ever interested in this, please look into the U.S. Pain Foundation. You and your children would go as a family, and it's a very empowering experience, as it is here, to see that you really aren't alone in life and that there are other people trying to cope with the same thing you do. And so something to consider. So I want to thank you very much for listening and putting up with me. That is my service dog, Maggie, that's behind the table here hiding on us. So thank you very much.
I was trying to think of a great opening line to say, and then I realized I really didn't need it, because it's absolutely amazing to be here with all of you on a panel about pain, because there was a time in my life when I was in such excruciating pain that I was begging God to take me or show me another way. And now here I am, years later, sitting here to talk to you about ways to help reduce your pain. So you never know what can happen, and so just be open to all possibilities. So, hold on a second, let me get here. Non-technical here. Okay, so today I'm going to be introducing you to a way to work with your body that is integrative and complementary and can bring relief to your symptoms. I'm going to talk about one of the many ways, energy systems that we work with, how stress and pain are related, and give you some examples of how these techniques have helped clients with FOP. I have worked with several clients with FOP, both domestically and internationally, and they've all had positive results and believe strongly in the benefits of energy medicine. So before we begin, there'll be a few things that I will be demonstrating today. I encourage you to follow along with me in the demos in whatever capacity that you can. You will benefit whether you do them yourself or have a caregiver do it for you. Or if you can reach some areas and not others, go ahead and work on that area and someone else could fill in the gaps. And then observing also brings you benefit. So what is energy medicine? It's about learning the language of the body. Energy medicine draws from yoga, acupuncture, Chinese medicine, and other time-honored traditions. We seek to restore balance and maintain it with the flow, balance, and harmony, and we use rubbing, tapping, twisting, very lightly, light pinching, connecting specific energy pathways along the surface of the skin, along acupoints. We do exercises or postures designed for specific energetic effects, and by use of the mind to focus on moving specific energies. So right now I'm going to demonstrate something called the 4 thumps. I'm going to be tapping on what we call meridians. I will explain what meridians are as we move along in the presentation. If you can tap some areas, go ahead. If you can't, just follow, observe me and watch. So we're going to start right here at the top of the cheekbones. This is the beginning of the stomach meridian. This will help with nauseousness, sinus problems, and it just helps you to feel connected. So we're going to tap right here, and we're going to inhale through the nose and exhale through the mouth. Breath moves energy, so you want to always breathe in. Now we're going to come down to the clavicle. So right at the indent here, by the bottom of the clavicle, there's an indent. You're going to thump very vigorously here. This is the end of the kidney meridian. This helps to shoot energy throughout the body. So if you're fatigued during the day or throughout the weekend, go ahead and give yourself some taps here. Now we're going to come to the center of the chest, and we're going to either use our fingers or our fist, and this works with the immune system. So we are trying to wake up the immune system by tapping here. Breathe in and exhale. See, you thought you were going to fall asleep here, right? Now we're going to bring our arms and tap in at the sides under our armpits. This is a spleen meridian. It works with metabolism. If you can only reach with one hand, go ahead and do it. All right, so inhale again and exhale. So there's a few key principles in energy medicine that I need to talk about. One, the body needs its energies to move and have space to continue to move. That's very important. 2, to move in specific patterns. 3, to maintain a balance with other energies. And 4, to cross over. The right side of the brain controls the left side of the body. The left side of the brain controls the right side of the body. Your DNA is shaped like a double helix. Your body recognizes a crossover pattern. This is very important to have to increase movement. So I'm going to show a shoulder pull right now. If you cannot reach, what you can do is take your fingers and move them in a figure 8 position over the body or on the body, however you want. But this is about getting the body to remember to cross its energies over. And it's very nice if somebody does this actually on your back. So we're going to take our hand with a full open palm, bring it to the shoulder. You're going to dig in at the shoulder and swipe firmly to the opposite hip. Swoosh. And go ahead and do it again, all the way across. And then again. And now we're going to come to the other side. Pull in, dig in with those hands, and cross it over. Again, cross it over. And one more time, cross it over. Other times I might have people do a certain kind of a march to get that moving, lift the legs in a certain way, or the arms. Maybe they might just rotate the shoulders a certain way. And I have actually had people use their tongue to make a figure 8 on the inside of their mouth to cross over. Again, just to get that memory going. So I came into this work, as you kind of know by my opening line, due to my own journey with pain. After spinal surgery and years of stress, I developed a very bad case of fibromyalgia, along with a host of other medical issues, and it left me with excruciating pain. So thus began my search on how to alleviate it. I was tired of being uncomfortable and being in pain all the time, so I invested my time and energy into feeling different. The techniques I learned took all my pain away, and that's why I'm very excited to be here to share a bit of this with you today. So in energy medicine, we do not look at disease. We look at energy imbalances. These are present in everybody. Usually, we look to balance all basic energy systems first and then attempt to reduce the pain, because pain can become a habit. That pain can be reduced or eliminated by changing the habit and creating new habits. If someone, however, is in a pain crisis, then we will resort to a specific technique to try and relieve the discomfort. If the techniques are not helping, then we always advise you to seek the advice of your doctor. So helplessness can be overwhelming. So we seek to empower our clients in a variety of ways. One way we achieve client empowerment is by educating them on becoming aware of what they are feeling when they are in pain. So for instance, what is the body temperature? Are you hot? Are you cold? Clammy or damp? Instead of just focusing on the pain. The other things that we would ask would be, what time of day or night are you having the pain the most? Is it affecting your socializing, your sleeping, appetite? What is your joy level? What is your stress level? Are you drinking enough water? That is very important. These types of questions provide us clues as to what system needs balancing in that moment and allows us to focus on addressing these imbalances. When a person is only focusing on the pain, all of the energy goes to that area and the rest of the systems in the body begin to suffer. Another way to empower them is to teach our clients techniques that they can use when they are in pain or stressed. So breath is very important, especially with FOP. Again, breath moves energy. I can't emphasize that enough. We tend to hold our breath when we are in pain, and that is counterproductive. What we really want to do is breathe through the pain. And I know because I used to hold my breath all the time. So we teach several breaths. There's two that we're going to do right now. One is a he breath, H-E-E-E, and the other one is a ha breath, H-A-A-A. So we inhale through the nose and exhale longer through the mouth. The longer the exhale, the better it is, okay? So if you want to make a loud sound with it, you can. If you want to make a soft sound, it's whatever your body wants to do. So let's try the he breath right now. So we're going to inhale through the nose. Now we're going to do it again, and I want you to notice your shoulders drop when you do this. Inhale. And now we're going to do a ha breath. So inhale. Very fiery, right? This drops temperature. Breathe in again. I wish I knew it during menopause. Okay, inhale. And then you'll hear other people that will actually do this. That's another way. Again, it moves energy. So I've worked on people with FOP, and the feet are very tight. I can't get any movement out of it until I have them breathe in, use the mind to focus the breath down the leg, into the foot, and out. And when that happens, I get a foot that's like this, that all of a sudden I can get movement with it. That's how much breath works. And the more you do it, the more it happens. So you can use breath for any tensed area of the body. You want to use your mind, direct it into that, whether it's an arm or a leg or wherever the tenseness is, you want to focus that. Let's see. Yep, that's it. Okay. So I gave you all rings. Did everybody get their little toys? They're cheapo versions. They're not my high-quality ones. But so what these are AccuRings, okay? You're going to understand what they are as I move along in the presentation. But you can use them with one hand. My clients love these. I have friends, family, everybody takes them to work with them. They're relaxing. If they pop, don't worry about it, but they're yours to take home. I wouldn't wear it on your finger like a ring for a long period of time because I don't want you to cause constriction in there, but they're used to move congestion out of the fingers. So feel free to fidget with these while I'm talking. I don't care, I want you to do it. So play with one hand or two hands. It's very important for everybody to feel as if you have some control over what you are feeling so you can learn to work with the pain and understand what it's trying to tell you. So the system I'm going to be discussing today is meridians. Many of you are familiar with acupuncture. That uses needles. We use acupressure in energy medicine. So acupuncture and acupressure have been around for thousands of years, although acupressure is the older of the two. They use the same acupoints. These points lie on meridians. And again, you'll see it when I turn on the PowerPoint there. When they're stimulated, they help to rebalance the flow of energy. You use your fingers to apply acupressure on these points. Sometimes these points can be overcharged with too much energy, in which case we work with specific points to move energy out of that meridian into another one. Pain is usually a result of too much energy, and I can tell you that from my experience. It's locked in the body, and it needs a way to get out. So properly addressing this overload of energy can often reduce or eliminate the pain. All right, so let me explain what a meridian is. Okay, green light, right? Did I do something wrong? Oh, the top button. Okay. There we go. Okay, so this is a visual of the kidney meridian. It is your energy transportation system. So just like an artery carries blood, your meridian carries energy. Here you see a picture of the kidney meridian. It starts at the bottom of the foot, comes straight up the leg, up the center of the body. And what we did was we tapped right here on the clavicle. That was the end of the kidney meridian. I want you to know that the kidney meridian governs the bones. And it also works with the ears. So this is important to know. So meridians connect hundreds of tiny reservoirs of heat and electromagnetic energy that run along the surface of the skin. This is where its flow can be influenced by the electromagnetic energies of your hands. Anybody doubting that you have energy in your hands, if somebody gives you a hug or touches you gently, you feel it in your body. There is energy in your hands. It also runs deep into the body, where it brings energy to the organ it is named for and the bodily system that it works with. Meridians affect every physiological system in the body, including the immune, nervous, endocrine, circulatory, respiratory, digestive, reproductive, skeletal, muscular, and lymphatic systems. This is why I love meridians. Each system is fed by at least one meridian. When someone is in pain, one of the things I will do is look to see where the location of the pain is, and then I will look to see what meridian runs through that area, and then I will proceed from there. I will also look to see what time of day or night the pain is occurring the most, as that gives me a clue as to whether this is during a meridian's high fueling time or its low time. Very important. So for instance, there are 12 meridians. They run along a 24-hour cycle, and every 2 hours, a specific meridian is having its high fuel time. So if there's too much energy in there and it's during a high fuel time, that's when there's going to be a lot of pain. So the meridian flow is as critical as the blood flow. And if there's an obstruction, it will jeopardize the system that it feeds. So here is a partial picture of the spleen meridian that works with the metabolism. It works with the blood, and it also works with the immune system. Tapping here under the arms was the end of the spleen meridian. You see spleen 21 under the armpit. That's what we were tapping on. And working with meridians can activate healing, and I'm proof of it. So this is a little video that I found. Here you have a man with a bunch of lines on his body. These are his energy highways. They're very fixed pathways. One flows into another, into another. So I want you to picture that you're on a highway and you're in a car and you've got goods that you're delivering to somebody and you have to go 2 highways over. So you're driving along, you're in traffic, okay, everything's good, all of a sudden jam up. You're not going anywhere. Nobody behind you's going anywhere. And the goods are not getting the 2 highways up where they need to go. That is the same thing that works with your energy system. So It's not just that meridian that has the pain in it, but it might be the one in front of it, or it might be the one behind it, okay? So you see a lot of dots on the body. Those are the acupoints. And the interesting thing is that I notice a lot of gnarly growths and things right along major acupoint areas. I find that fascinating. So now we're going to see a little, let's see, okay, here's a little video. So here's the kidney at the bottom. I want you to notice the energy lines in the feet. That red line is the spleen meridian. That is where you see FOP malformation in the big toe. Works with the immune system. Kidney on the inside works with the bones. And then you've got liver coming up, crossing over. So it's important to know, I'm going to explain why that's important to know, that there are energy systems that flow through the feet. And here you see it traveling up the body. And again, you can see this a little bit clearer now that they are very fixed pathways here. And he'll just work his way all the way up. And they run through the face, all the way up around the head, down the back. They're everywhere. And they're fascinating if anybody wants to read about them. So this next one is a picture of the lung meridian. So I want you to notice how this is traveling down the inside of the arm and off the thumb. And I want you to notice that there's a lot of energy lines by the hands. So energy flows in and out through the feet and the hands. Very important to know. So energy gets congested here. And what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to do clearing the gates on the hands right now. So for those of you that just want to work with your rings, go ahead, because that will help you with any kind of congestion that's in the finger itself, but I'm actually going to go a little bit deeper on the hands. Now what I want to tell you is that I have been amazed at working on the gates on people's feet, okay, with FOP, because I have had toes that are stuck together, and when I clear the gates consistently, they separate. I get motion, I get fluidity there. It's absolutely unbelievable. I told somebody I feel like, did you ever see the Mr. Clean commercial? He cleans the floor, it's all dirty and it's white now and he looks great. I sit there at the bottom of the feet and go, oh my God, I can't believe it opened up. So this is really fascinating. All right, so we're going to take our hands. This is an example of rubbing, okay? So you are going to rub deeply. You are not being nice to yourself here. This is a deep rub. Okay, so you're coming in between the bones, and you're going to come between the thumb and the index finger here. Rub deep. And as you do this, you're going to notice if you have any tenderness anywhere, and I want you to really get up in the webbing. And then you're going to come up between the second and third finger. And I know you're all nice to yourselves, because when somebody else does it, you'll really feel it. And then come between the third and the fourth finger. And then between the fourth and the fifth finger. And I want you to get up and just move your hands in between that webbing. And then you're going to turn the hand over, take your thumb, come to the center of the palm, and move your fingers up again towards the webbing. And you want to notice, do you have any tenderness on the outside or the inside of the hand or near a particular finger? Now you're going to just twist and pull off each finger. Now normally I spend a lot of time when I work on the hands and the feet, and it's relaxing. I'm just showing you this in a very quick way. So now on the other side, we're going to come again, rub deeply, and then come up between the pointer and the third finger, and then the third and the fourth, and the fourth and the fifth. And then turn it around. You have a center, energy center here, so when you open that up, you're distributing energy here. And move it along. And then twist and pull off. If you've ever had a manicure or your hands massaged, you know it feels really good afterwards. That's because your energy was moved. Give it a little bend back, just pull off the hands. Okay, so that's just a simple way to show that. So using acupressure points is just one of the ways that we work with meridians. Another way that we work with them is by holding what we call neurovascular points. These are reflex points. What happens is stress affects everything in the body, including your immune system. It triggers vasoconstriction. It occurs in the forebrain when you're under stress. And then it leaves, it shoots down into the chest and the limbs to help repair you and support you for the fight, flight, freeze response. So being in stress and pain is stressful enough, and you can become stressed just thinking about when the pain will return. And I know this from experience. So what happens when you're stressed? Your body tenses and contracts. Muscles tighten. The tension tends to go to the back, shoulders, neck, jaw, and forehead. The nervous system becomes upset. Let's see if I get this right here. Okay, so the neurovascular points are most frequently used for managing stress and blood flow. They can be used as another way of balancing the meridian that they are connected to. Using these points also trains your body to meet the fight-flight stress response and helps you to not initiate the fight-flight stress response. That's what I want to say. So the neurovascular points can be touched or held lightly to boost blood circulation and draw the blood that had been diverted into the chest and limbs for the fight-flight-freeze response back up into the brain. When this more sustainable circulation is restored, by working with the neurovascular points, a message is sent to the body. Hey, we're out of danger. It's okay. All systems can go back to their jobs. Okay? In the classes I teach, I emphasize the fact that pain is not your enemy. It is just the body's way of communicating with you, like a 911 call. Attention is needed. Send help. The biggest thing to recognize and understand about pain is that it's just its way of communicating. I used to hate my body because it represented pain and discomfort to me. And just getting the awareness that my body was not trying to hurt me helped to calm things down. We don't want to shoot the messenger, but seek to understand what they are trying to tell us. So, these are the main frontal points. I am sure you have all seen people all over the world go like this. Oh my God. Am I right? With their stressed, or they will put their hands to their head like this, or they'll lean over at the desk like this. Nobody taught you to do that. Nobody taught you. It's just an instinct. This is your body's natural intelligence. The problem is you don't leave your hand there long enough and you don't breathe with it. When you do that, the blood flow comes back up. When you're stressed and you think about it and you put your hand here, the blood flow comes back up to the brain. And each time, your reaction to that stress is less and less and less. You lose 80% of the blood from the forebrain when you're under stress. And that means you're not thinking clearly. So, see where I want to go here. So it helps to calm and stabilize the system. So the emotional aspects of pain involving feelings of fear, anxiety, anger, and annoyance, as well as physical suffering, impact the person's outlook and ability to respond appropriately to the message. And that's why you want to use these points. So there are many other neurovascular points on the head, as you can see on the screen. We're not going to go into them right now, but what I would tell you to do is to take your finger at the base of the head, where the red dot is in the middle, and just slowly slide your finger up and notice if you feel a little dent or an indent. And then you can just slide up a little bit more, and then look for another one. And then you can slide up a little bit more and see if you feel another. And you can do it on the sides of your ears as well. This is something I invite you to play with when you go home or you're laying down and you're resting. I never knew they were there. I thought they were amazing when I found out about them. Each one of these points is associated with a different meridian and emotion. And I have a specific protocol that I use with some of these neurovascular points when someone's under a lot of pain and stress. And when I do this protocol, they go out. I mean out. They're out for a good 10 minutes because it's such a deeply relaxing protocol, and their body temperature changes. They go from being hot to cold. That's how I've had people with FOP say, I don't need a blanket, I'm hot. I'll say, watch out, you're gonna need it. And then sure enough, they're cool by the end of it. They wake up very peaceful and restored, and that's because the body had forgotten how to relax. And what this does is helps it to remember. Very powerful points to use, and it's simple for everybody to learn how to use them. So right now I'd like to give you a few examples of how this was used with 3 clients with FOP. A few years ago, one of my clients took a bad forward fall in the basement, and everybody around him was as stressed as we was. His eyes rolled backwards, his skin went white, and because we'd been working together for a number of years, he was aware of some of the techniques that we had been doing. So he instructed his mother to hold his main neurovascular points on the head. She held them there for several minutes until his color returned, and he was able to calm down. FOP never reacted to that trauma, and he went to an out-of-town wedding 4 days later. This technique kept his body from staying in the fight, flight, freeze. And I believe, in my opinion, that this can help to possibly try to prevent flare-ups. I really do. And I say it because when you're in that fight, flight, freeze, your body is on high alert, hormones are sent out, blood pressure rises, muscles contract, your body stiffens. If too much of this happens, your body forgets to calm down. The messages your body is receiving, keep it in that mode. You cannot change your reaction, but you can learn not to keep it by using something like these neurovascular points. So last summer, a client took a horrible fall, broke C6 in the neck, hit the hip, and fractured 7 inches of the femur bone, all on the same side. Immediately after the fall, instructed his mother and brother to hold his neurovascular points along with a few other techniques that he knew. This was done in the emergency room as well. Because of FOP, he made the decision to recover without surgery. He was put on 24/7 bed rest for almost 3 months without any weight bearing. And after 9.5 weeks, he was able to stand up. Besides a few doses of children's Tylenol, he recovered without surgery, drugs, or casts. He only used energy medicine. I used acupressure points, breath work, as well as some other protocols, one of them known as the Brazilian toe technique or acupressure-based foot therapy. Anyone, again, can learn it. I'll be teaching that in the breakout. It takes about 20 minutes to do. It helps to relieve pain, edema, insomnia, and nausea, and it helps to relax the person. This technique is currently being used at the Dana-Farber Cancer Center and was just recently introduced at Johns Hopkins. Up here at the table are handouts of the study that was done for you to take copies home, as well as some handouts for some of the things that we did today, so make sure you help yourself to that. Another client with FOP said, I think the most important thing is that before we discovered energy medicine, FOP patients were always tensed and tight, perhaps as a result of the fight or flight response and the constant fear that we feel as a result of the unknown with FOP. Energy medicine is really helpful in getting us to relax and loosen up, which in turn assists in reducing pain. Now I want you to know, I mentioned earlier that kidney meridian works with the bones and the ears. The emotion that it works with is fear. So when asked what helped most during a flare-up, a third client said, it's hard to pinpoint one specific thing. It really was the combination of everything, the relaxing aspect of it, and the practice of setting time aside to just relax and focus on healing rather than being in pain and feeling helpless to stop it. It helped me to feel like I had some control over my body. I especially loved pulling the bad energy off. So when I asked her what did she mean by bad energy, she said, well, she associated that with pain, stress, anxiety, fear, and powerlessness. I will be demonstrating the pull-off in the breakout session, and every client I have absolutely loves it. This is just a brief intro into a few of the many things that we do to address pain. I hope I was able to give you some insight into what I do. Not everything will work for everyone. For some people, an aspirin is helpful, and for others, it does nothing. We're all unique individuals, and it's very important to respect a person's feelings for whether they feel that this type of work aligns with them. If you have adult children and they're not open to it, then we must respect how they feel. But it's nice to have options, and now you can add this to your list. So I share it with you because of the positive results I have seen and experienced. If you have any questions, please feel free to come up and ask me. I'll be here till Sunday morning. I have the 2 breakout sessions this afternoon, where I'll be doing Brazilian toe, foot gait, some neurovascular points, and then the other breakout will be techniques used during a flare-up, but it's really good for anything, anytime, as well as whatever else I can fit in then. And let's see what else I want to say. Please, like I said, take the handouts. And then anyone looking to connect with a practitioner or that would like a virtual appointment, which is where I teach the caregiver and or client techniques they can use, you can contact me at empoweredbyenergy.com. And I end with this quote: in every culture and every medical tradition before ours, healing was accomplished by moving energy. So thank you, and if you're coming to the Brazilian toe, please bring a pillow with you so you can rest your arms on it. So hope this was helpful.
Okay, thank you.